Good afternoon, everybody. It's Friday, someday in June, I think the 23rd, if I remember right. And I'm back to do another video today discussing a couple questions that I had received here a few weeks ago. I promised to get some of these questions answered during my recovery time. And it's been about 3 weeks since I started recovering and feeling really good. And got some time here, so I thought we'd look at this particular 270 where I've now added a whole bunch of my Green Terror Stahlsbergies that I had spawned here a few months ago, and these are all grow outs that are 3, 4, 5 inches in size. That's a pretty good looking female right there. And over here is a male who's going to turn hightail and run. This is the tank where I had just a ton of Islanums. Still have about a half a dozen, but when the population got reduced, I decided to mix it up and add some of these green terrors that I had growing out all over the place. Here's probably one of the best looking Islanum I've ever had. I wish he'd come out, but he may come out later. Anyway, I'm going to answer a couple questions today. I believe Lloyd Greenhill, I think was the gentleman's name, who asked what fish I most regret not having anymore, or stop keeping, what have you. And another question, for the love of knowledge, asked if I had any info on Haitiensis, Nandopsis Haitiensis. And so we're going to answer both of those questions today. And while we're talking, we've got my good friend Arrow the cat down here. He's one of our 3 kittens we got last summer. He just came in from a nice time outdoors on his catio. And he likes to sit here next to the 1,000-gallon tank when I'm doing videos, and he'll jump up on this cat pole that I have right by the tank, where, as you can see, there's a ton of little red devils. I did get a new male Umbi, your standard blue version, Rio Magdalena, right here yesterday. So hopefully he will grow out and spawn with some of these females I have, like over here. Anyway, so let's start with Haitiensis. I had quite a bit of experience with Haitiensis, actually, so we kind of have to go back into the Wayback Machine. And back, I don't know the exact dates, mid-'80s, early '90s, somewhere around there. My nephew, who at the time was in his, I suppose, teens, maybe early 20s, had a couple of good friends of his he went to high school with and grew up with, Jeff and Scott Blake. And Jeff was the older of the two, and they both were kind of like adopted nephews of mine, along with my nephew Troy. And they got really hooked on the cichlids. And Jeff and Scott went crazy and really got hooked on them. And for, 5-10 years, they were probably almost as big into them as I was. They got really big tanks and really got into the fish. Well, Jeff was a computer geek, and this was back before the internet was around. This was back in the days of I forget what they were called, but like Odyssey was one of the things, and American Online, just these kind of boards, I guess, that you could subscribe to. Anyway, just when the internet started, Jeff had thought it would be a great idea for us to put together a fish website. And at the time, just a little prior to that, I had been writing a little fanzine, I guess, called Cyclosoma Power, which I started back in the early 80s as part of the ACA. And it was devoted strictly to Central and South American cichlids like, Dovi and what have you. In any case, so I had stopped doing that, and Jeff thought it would be fun to put together a website. I didn't even know what a website was at the time, but he put one together, and I decided to call it Real Cichlids Don't Eat Quiche. And it may very well have been the first aquarium site on the internet. Certainly was the first site relating to cichlids and Central American cichlids. This was maybe in the mid 90s, late 90s. I don't really remember. Anyway, we put together a Hall of Fame, and I wrote several articles on the thing. The site's still there, at least a part of it. If you Google "real cichlids don't eat quiche," you'll find Jeff Blake. I think he keeps it from his house now or something. It's just a small thing now. Any case, in our top 10, one of the fish was Nandopsis Haitiensis, and I provided a description of it and some photos of some of the fish we had kept. Some of these photos were mine, some of them were Jeff and Scott's. And Jeff actually named the fish the Black Nasty, and it stuck. And to this day, Haitiensis is, of course, known as the Black Nasty. We got these when they were very, very first imported into the U.S. And at the time, it was a really, cool fish. Nobody had ever seen it before. Of course, it's closely related to Tetracanthus. There's actually 3 Nandopsis species: Tetracanthus, Ramsdeni, and Haitiensis. Of the 3, Tetracanthus is probably the most readily available. It certainly has been in and out of the hobby for 70 years, more or less. Back in the old days, it often was confused with the jaguar cichlid, Parachromis monoguens, and the other of the 3 that has kind of been in and out of the hobby, never really got super popular, was Nandopsis Ramsdeni. And that is a really weird fish if you've never seen it. It can get quite deep bodied and get a decent hump, but it is so skinny. When it turns and faces you forward, the thing can't be more than an inch wide. I mean, it is one thin, narrow fish. And it was always probably my least favorite of the 3 of those species. It's not nearly as robust as Tetracanthus or Haitiensis, but it's certainly unique. And, I had it for a while. But Haitiensis is a very, thick-bodied, gets to about 12. I think we had a couple maybe in the old days that were up around 14 inches. They develop really big nuchal humps. They do tend to have some issues with bloating, and stress can definitely bloat them out. They're one of the more difficult cichlids to keep thriving, at least in my experience. Nowadays, I haven't kept the fish for years until yesterday. Me and a buddy of mine, Kevin, that used to own a pet store up here in Seattle, a place for pets in Burien, where I used to unload tons of my dovies and other fry when I had them, including Stallsbergy. We drove down to the Wet Spot. It's a fish store in Portland, and pretty well known for its cichlids, and I picked up a few Haitiensis when I was down there just for the heck of it. So we'll look at those as time goes by. They're just in an 80-gallon tank. They're in the 80 that I actually removed these green terrors from, so I can make room for the new little guys. I also got some convicts. Convicts were the first fish I ever kept back in the day, and that's the fish that started me, like probably so many other people, on this crazy journey through all the cichlids. So I guess in my old age, I thought, I got to get some convicts. My wife always loved them, and now we got a half a dozen little 1-inch convicts sharing a tank with the Haitiensis, at least for now. So we'll see how that goes. Anyhow, I think we've sat in this room long enough, so let's wander over into the other room, and as we go by, we'll take a gander at the ornatums male, and here's the female. They're growing really well, and there's a whole bunch of 3 or 4 atros in this tank as well. So let's head on into the other room. The other question pertained to what fish did I give up on too quickly, or did I wish I still kept or still had? And I'm going to answer that one with kind of a different way, I guess. There's actually a whole slew of Rio Pinoco cichlids, Herectes species that I had many years ago that I wish I still, you just don't have tank space for everything, but I did really love those fish. They were all from that Media Luna area, Labradens, the blue and the yellow labs, the Pantos dictus, and the other one that I really, really liked, which was exceedingly rare, and I don't know if that thing's been in the hobby for decades, but Herectes steindockneri. I really enjoyed that fish, probably partially because it was so incredibly rare. At the time I got these back in the, I don't even know, I'm going to say the 90s, maybe it was the early 2000s, might even have been the late 80s. Time kind of flies by after a while. Whenever it was, I'm pretty sure I might have had one of the very few in the hobby. It was, eventually it got to be about 14 inches long. It was a male, and I just had the one. If I could have tracked down a female, I certainly would have loved to have spawned them and got, them kind of more established in the hobby. But alas, that was the only one I ever saw live. And it was a really cool predator, kind of an elongated Texas, I guess, if you will. And nice predatory, big jaws, big mouth. It was not a shy fish, but it was very peaceful. Was not aggressive like a doveye. It lived in a community tank quite well. Of course, it was a 600-gallon tank he lived in, so you can get away with a lot more in tanks that big than some of the others. So who knows how it would have acted in a 200, 150, something like that. Right now you're looking at my 600 that has the Parafestae, the ornatums, green terrors, what have you. This particular ornatum has been getting very feisty lately. You can see him in the middle of the aquarium and trying to establish dominance with this male festi. I think if I come around this direction, there might be more light, might be a little easier to see them. But now they're going to all run off now that I've done that. In any case, and over here we've got the, no, he just ran off. That was the male, the biggest male of the green terrors that I have, the steindockneris. Over here is one of my many pairs of chanchos, and of course a whole pile of devils and midas and what have you. And then there's my big fella. He's the last of my dovies, the last son of that massive guy who was about 27 inches when he died here a couple of years ago. This guy here is easily 20 inches now, maybe more. He's got that big in 3 years. You can see his nuchal hump, and he's definitely getting to be a pretty good sized fish. Anyway, hopefully that answers the questions. I'll have some other answers from some more questions here down the line. For now, I'm going to say take it easy and hope everybody's doing well.